We are continuing and starting today the study of Isha Upanishad in the light of Sri Aurobindo. So you can chant after me. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, Purnamada Purnamidam, this is the Shanti part of Isha Upanishad. Every Upanishad has a Shanti part, which is actually the signature idea, the central idea of the Samhita from where that particular Upanishad has been taken. So I'm sure you must know the meaning of this. So Purnam Ada, Purnam Idam. So that is complete. Purnam, whole, complete. This is complete. Purnat, Purnam Udachyate. From that complete, if you take complete, what remains is completeness. Now, this does not justify mathematics studies, right? If we take away 5 from 5, 0 remains, not 5. Correct? But I'm sure you have been also, the mathematics of the infinite. You know the symbol infinitive?
Yes,
Yeah. So, infinitive plus infinity is infinity. Infinity minus infinity is infinity. Infinity multiplied by infinity is infinity. So Purnamada Purnamidam is referring to that Brahman, that divine consciousness which is infinite, and it is infinite everywhere, and even when infinite is taken from it, what remains is infinite. So this is the Shanti part of Yajnavalkya Samhita from the Shukla Yajurveda. So I'll just give you a context of where this Upanishad has come from. So you must be knowing that we have 4 Vedas. Okay. There is the Rig Veda, Samaveda, Yajurveda, and Atharva Veda. Each of the Vedas have 4 texts or 4 aspects to them. The first is Samhita. Each of the Vedas have a Samhita, like Rig Veda has a Rig Veda Samhita. And that Samhita contains all the mantras. Then the second body of knowledge we have is the Aranyaka. Like Rig Veda will have its own Aranyaka, Samaveda will have its own Aranyaka. And Aranyaka tells us about the action or the rituals that must be conducted with each mantra. Because there is here action and mantra, everything comes together. So the rituals and actions that have to go with each mantra is in the Aranyakas. The third body of knowledge is the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas are the commentaries on these actions and rituals. Okay, how this ritual should be done, why are they done, the significance of that. These commentaries are Brahmanas. And finally, the fourth body of knowledge is the Upanishads. And this Upanishad is the philosophical essence of that Veda, of that particular either Rig Veda or Sama Veda. So Isha Upanishad comes from Shukla Yajurveda. Now Krishna and Shukla are ascribed, whether some of the Vedas do not have Brahmanas. They are devoid of the commentaries of Brahmanas and they are called Shukla. And if they have the Brahmanas, these are the, so because these are devoid of Brahmanas, it's called Shukla Yajurveda. So Isha Upanishad forms the part of Shukla Yajurveda, and the composer of this is Yajnavalkya. We say composer and not author because the seers never, the rishis, they never said that this is our knowledge. They were not copywriting or patenting it, because in their inner vision, they saw this knowledge. It already existed, and they were just recipients of this knowledge. They had this humility to acknowledge that they have not given birth to this knowledge. This knowledge already exists. They just developed inner faculties through which they could receive the knowledge. So they were called drashtas or shrotas. They were the seers. Either they could see it in their inner vision or they could hear it. It's like Mozart or Beethoven, when they compose symphonies, they already saw the symphony in another realm. And that is why Yajnavalkya is considered the composer of Shukla Yajurveda. And it is also called Vajasanei Samhita, Yajnavalkya Samhita, or Vajasanei, because Vajaseni was Yajnavalkya's father. And we in Sanskrit use this kind of saying, like to Arjuna in Mahabharata, it many a times is referred to as Kaunteya, because he was son of Kunti. So similarly, Yajnavalkya is also called Vajasanei, and this is called Yajnavalkya or Vajasanei Samhita of Shukla Yajurveda. So this is the context from which Isha Upanishad, where it belongs. And even though it forms part of Vedanta, but it retains the flavor of the Vedas. It is the oldest, one of the oldest Upanishads, and it is very Vedic in its flavor, even though it is at the end of the Vedas, but one of the earliest Upanishads. And there are thousands of Upanishads actually, but what is formally recognized are 108. The 108 Upanishads, but we generally study 10 or 12 of them because Shankaracharya, who recovered the knowledge of the Upanishads, he has translated in his bhashyas and has interpreted 10 of these Upanishads, mainly the Isha, the Kena, the Mundaka, Mandukya, Taittiriya, Aitiriya, Chandogya, Brihadaranyaka, Prashna, and Kathopanishad. So these are the 10 Upanishads that are generally studied. And even Sri Aurobindo has translated some of them. But the detailed commentaries he has written only of Isha Upanishad and Kena Upanishad. Others he has translated, but taken the ideas and expanded them in his seminal works like The Life Divine, Synthesis of Yoga, Savitri, and so on. So you may ask this question, and I may ask you that. What was the enquiry of these Upanishads? What were they seeking? Any body of research or any body of knowledge is a result of some seeking, right? When you publish a research paper or something. So what was it that the Upanishads were seeking? Anybody?
The ultimate truth.
Yes. Yeah, they were all seeking Brahmavidya, Brahmavidya, the eternal truth. And this Vidya, we know, the Para and Apara Vidya, there is a distinction between the Para and Apara Vidya. One is if you have to say it in layman's terms, one is the lower knowledge, the other is higher knowledge, not because it is low or high, but because one deals with what we can feel and see through our senses, the material reality. Okay, so that is the knowledge of this world and everything, like even the study of Upanishads would come under that. And what is Brahmavidya is that experience of that reality. It is not a knowledge of that reality. The knowledge of that reality is still this Vidya of the lower knowledge. But the experience of reality is the Brahmavidya or the higher knowledge. And that is why, even in the Bhagavad Gita, there is a distinction between Sankhya and Jnana Yoga. Second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita deals with Sankhya. Sankhya is a mental understanding of this whole framework. And that is not Brahmavidya. But Jnana Yoga, which is the one section of the Bhagavad Gita, is experiencing the divine, realizing the divine, knowing the divine. And that is Brahmavidya. So, what the Upanishads are the map laid down by the rishis and seers of Brahmavidya. It is their journey and it has been documented, which serve as a map for others behind them, like you and me, who want to follow that path. Supposing you want to go into a forest, a virgin forest that nobody has gone, it'll be very difficult, right, for the first person to figure out. You'll have to make lots of mistakes and all. But if by chance you're in a library and you chance upon this map of somebody who went maybe 100 years ago and has left this, it will definitely serve as a guide to you, right? Now, when you start walking on the path, things may have changed, things may be different. You may carve your own path, or the path may still be there and you can follow it if you're lucky. Or times may have changed, some new trees may have come up, and you may have to take some detours. But at least if there is a map, we know that it is possible to reach from this point to that point. And this is the greatest contribution of Upanishads. And when we take up the study of Upanishads, it has to be done with deep gratitude and humility. With deep gratitude for those who went in front of us on this path and achieved Brahmavidya and have taken the trouble to document it, which this book is today in my hands. And it is a matter of gratitude and also of humility that before we start, doubting or questioning or what is there, like a lot of Western academia, their approach to the study of these is very different from how we take it up in the East. In India, there is a lot of humility with which we take up these studies. If we do not understand, we give ourselves time. We feel that we are not maybe ready yet to take it up. So humility and gratitude are the two pillars, you can say, or the two the rail line tracks, which are necessary to proceed on this path of Brahmavidya. The second point is that the study of these texts defeats its purpose if it remains just a curiosity of the mind. We can become great scholars in all of this, but if we do not live that philosophy in our lives, if it does not bring a change in how we act, how we respond, how we deal with others, how we deal with situations, we may be the biggest scholar and Brahmin of and know everything by heart and all the meanings, but when something unpleasant happens, we do not have the equanimity and we lose our cool or we get angry, then the whole purpose of the study of this is lost. So when we take up these studies, two things. One, we take it up with a lot of humility and gratitude. And secondly, we take it up with this intent, a very strong intent that we have to, whatever we have understood in the mind, it has to immediately translate into life. It is not enough that it only stays in the mind as knowledge. It has to become a living philosophy. Okay. So these are the important things that we will take it up and use this journey as a transformative experience. It should transform us the way we are. This knowledge should make us change the way we act and behave and make it a transformational experience. Okay. So, Isha Upanishad is one of the smallest Upanishads, I think next to Mandukya. It has only, Isha has only 18 verses, and it is one of the smallest ones, but it is very, very powerful. It's very potent. It has some of the ideas which you cannot understand with the rational mind. It has, there is, yesterday I was talking about thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So there is a way of thinking which is not linear and critical reasoning alone. It is higher realms of our mind which sees the truth in its reality. The difference between critical thinking and rational mind and intuitive understanding is that when we try to understand things with our rational mind, we have to proceed by analysis, right? If I need to know what is there inside the fan, I have to take apart the fan and see that there are wings and there's motor, and then I have to open the motor. So that is one way of understanding and knowing a thing. The other way is a flash of intuition. That is another way of knowing. And all great discoveries, like the benzene structure, it came as an intuitive flash of insight to the scientist. When you're engaged with some research, something illumines you with a flash. So the Upanishads came to the rishis as flashes of these intuitions. And that is why you would find that between one idea and another, there is no logical step. Just there is a series of steps. So the rishi would be talking about one thing and suddenly about another thing, and which may seem to have no connection because there are two or three steps in between that he has omitted, because that was the method of inquiry in those days. So that is what we will try to fill up in these sessions. Like suddenly when some two ideas are presented, how do they link up is something that we will do. So Isha Upanishad has 4 movements. The total 18 verses they cover 4 movements. So the first movement is verses 1, 2 and 3, which we will take up today. That is the first movement, and I will tell you what these movements are about. The second movement is 4, 5, 6 and 7 verses, which we will do next Thursday. The third movement is from verses 8 to 14, and the final movement is 15 to 18, the last 4 verses. And these verses, I want to reiterate, are a result of reflection, intuition, meditation, and experience. This is not mental gymnastics. These are truths that have been experienced by the rishis, and therefore it is experiential knowledge. Okay? And experiential knowledge is different from experimental knowledge, because in experimental knowledge, which is the science is based on experimental knowledge where data is collected through the senses. So the movement of consciousness is going outward with our senses and trying to collect data, and that inferring that data and coming up with a hypothesis and a final result. This is experimental way of learning, and this is what has been prevalent in the last 300-400 years, ever since modern science was born. But this knowledge, Vedanta, is not experimental, it is experiential. And the main difference is that the consciousness, instead of going out through the senses, is taken in by shutting the senses off, because what the senses can perceive is not reality. You must be aware of quantum physics, right? This book that appears like a solid book is actually 99.9% empty space. It is a series of protons and neutrons and electrons swirling, and they take up only 0.01% of the space, and the rest is empty space. But this appears to us as a solid book, right? So when we go through our senses, we perceive this as a solid piece of wood, a book, or a wall, but reality is different. So, experiential, and we had to wait till quantum physics came and relativity, and now E is equal to mc square, energy and matter, and all of that. And now science has come to this understanding that there is, there are atomic reactors which do experiments and all of that. But the same knowledge, how was it possible that 5,000 years ago, and it is documented in these texts? Because this knowledge was experiential. There, the mode of inquiry is going within. It is pulling the consciousness within and seeing things not with external senses but with our subtle senses. We have a subtler vision, we have inner vision which we can develop. There was this whole science of yoga and um, all of a lot of techniques and all through which people had access to these inner realms. And since the microcosm is the macrocosm, Blake has said that all the world in a grain of sand, all heaven in a wild flower. That if we have the eyes, we can see the whole world in a grain of sand, because that grain of sand, which is the microcosm, has all the secrets of the macrocosm. So this body that we call ourselves, it is a microcosm, but it has once we know it, we can know the whole universe. And that was the mode of inquiry. So with that background, we will proceed, and I will project my screen so that you can see the text. And this is the first verse of Isha, is Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam Yat Kincha Jagatyam Jagat Tena Tyaktena Bhunjitha Ma Gridha Kasyasvid Dhanam. So unless any of you is interested in the Sanskrit of it, I will not go into the declensions and Sanskrit formations. But if anybody wants to know, you can ask, and I will be very happy to say. So the reason Isha Upanishad derives its name is because it begins with the word Isha. And I'm sure many of you, most of you, or all of you may know Sanskrit. So Isha is Tritiya Vibhakti Ekavachanam, which is by the Lord. Okay, Isha means by the Lord. So what is to be done by the Lord? Vasyam. And Vasyam has many meanings. One is to be inhabited by. The other is to be draped by or to be worn by. So, by the Lord, something has to be worn. And what is to be worn? Idam sarvam, all that is here. All that we can see, our senses can perceive, over the reality that we can perceive, the sun, moon, ourselves, this matter, stone, plants, animals, sky, Jupiter, Saturn, all of this, sarvam idam, all here has to be inhabited by the Lord. Isha. Isha is the Lord. And we will come to what we mean by the Lord. And then there is explanation further of idam sarvam. What all is here? Yat kincha jagatyam jagat. All that is moving in the moving universe. So imagine around 5000 BC, our ancestors and rishis knew that everything is in movement. That it is not that the sun is static here, and this movement, jagati, is that which moves in this jagat. All that is moving in this moving universe. So right from subatomic particles, which are quantum particles, which are moving, to the large galaxies and Milky Ways and the universes, everything is in movement. Nothing is the same from second to second. And that is the temporariness of the world. The transience of the world is that everything is in movement. What was there last second is not there now. Even it is now proven scientifically that every second, I think, our entire bodies are being disintegrated and integrated some millions of times as energy waves. So everything that is moving in the moving universe here has to be inhabited by the Lord. That is the first line. Then there is a jump of understanding. Tena tyaktena bhunjitha. Okay, tena is by that, tyaktena, renounced, bhunjitha, you should enjoy. Bhunjitha is from bhukti. Bhukti is enjoyment, mukti is liberation. So tena tyaktena, by that renounced, enjoy all. Magridha, do not hold on to. Kasyas with dhanam, anybody's possession. Now, if you look at it directly, there is no connect between the first and the second line. All that is here moving in this moving universe is for the inhabitation of the Lord, and by renouncing all, enjoy all, and do not lust after any man's possessions. So to understand this, we have to see what are the hidden ideas and understandings between these two lines, and then this will make sense. So, because everything is moving in this moving universe, everything is changing, right? Nothing is the same as before. So if you are attached to anything, you will always have suffering, because the flower, the rose that just bloomed in your garden and you love it, after 4 days it's going to disintegrate. It is not the same. Everything is moving in this moving universe. So it is only by detachment, tyaktena, by renouncing, that we can be truly enjoying things. Why? Because if we want something, we are desiring something, we will always have that anxiety that when will I get it? When will I get it? And after we have got it also, can we enjoy it? No, because we'll have this fear that we should hold on to it because we shouldn't lose it. We shouldn't lose it. So bhunjitha, enjoyment, can only happen when there is renouncement, when we renounce. But is this renouncing something that is a negative thing? And that is what we will analyze now. So we should enjoy everything by renouncing and do not hold on to things. Magridha, Ma is a negative particle. So kasyas with dhanam can be looked at in two ways. One is anybody's wealth, kasyas with. Do not hold on to anybody's wealth. The second is it can be seen as a question. Kasyas with dhanam. Whose wealth is it anyway? Do not hold on to it because whose wealth is it anyway? And the answer is in the first line. It is Isha's wealth, right? It is all this is for Isha. And who are you in your highest self? I want you to be interactive. I want you to answer and think. Who are you in your highest self? Each one of you. Exactly. So we have this lower personality, but we also have a divine personality into which we have to grow. So which is a higher way of being? Being in this limited personality and trying to acquire things materially, or growing in consciousness to Isha, because the Upanishad says categorically all this is for the enjoyment or inhabitation by the Lord. So does this make sense now? Right? So if we have to paraphrase the first statement, it says that all this is for the inhabitation of the Lord, all that is moving in this moving universe, and it is never the same. So if we gridha, if we hold on to things, we can never be happy. The only way to enjoy is by renouncement, because only by renouncement we grow into our divine nature and we become Isha ultimately. And then once we become Isha, whose wealth is it anyway? It is Isha's, because all this is for the inhabitation of Isha. So that is the first verse. Now we come to the second verse. कुर्वन्ने वेह कर्माणि जिजिविषेत शतं समाह एवं त्वयि नान्यथेतोस्ति न कर्म लिप्यते नरे. Okay. So this verse is telling us that only by doing works in the world, kurvanne veha karmani, by doing verily works in the world, jiji vishet shatam samaha, we should wish to live for 100 years. So 100 is not a number, it is the fullness of life. 100 is symbolic of a full life. Okay. Evam tvai, only like this and not in any other way, karma will not cleave to man. So there is again a lot of hidden meanings into it. So now that we have renounced desire, I want you to reflect on it a bit. What makes us act? What makes us do anything? Karma, and which is and also desire. So we want to learn something, that desire comes, so we go somewhere. We want to be with somebody, so we do there. So once everything is tyakta, everything has been renounced, and there is no desire, then what will be the basis of action? Just after the first verse, the second verse is coming. In the first verse, it is saying, give up all attachment, do not have any desires. And then in the second verse, it is saying, do works. So here is the difference between Shankaracharya and Sri Aurobindo. I will come to. So this was, Shankaracharya was an Advaitin. He said that this is Brahman and there is nothing else but Brahman. So all that we see here is illusion and therefore neti neti. And so it was difficult for him to explain karma. That why is Isha telling do karma? Because if everything is neti neti, then we should not be doing karma, right? So how Shankara explains karma is sacrifice, sacrificial karmas. Around the sacrifice you sit and do karma. But Sri Aurobindo does not interpret it in that way. Sri Aurobindo interprets it as truly as action. And I want to ask you that if desire is not there, then what will propel action? Can you tell me?
Selflessness.
Sorry?
Selfless.
Yes. So actually, as long as we are doing something with desire, we are not doing what actually needs to be done because we are doing things for our ego. It is only when desire is renounced that we can do the divine work. When our personal will gets transmuted into the divine will, it is the best example is Arjuna in Kurukshetra. Arjuna did not fight because he wanted to fight. Arjuna fought because Krishna wanted him to fight. And he did that action as an instrument of Krishna. There was no personal desire of either the kingdom or of victory or of fame, which are the driving forces of a Kshatriya. A Kshatriya fights and is for courage, it's for honor, it's for victory. But Arjuna, he couldn't do all of that. We know in Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the first chapter. And he fought because Krishna wanted him to fight. So, after we have renounced everything, if we do action, only that can be true action, the selfless action. And while doing that action, we have to wish to live for 100 years. Why is this mentioned here, wishing to live for 100 years? Because when we become enlightened, when we attain liberation, this world appears full of suffering. It is not an easy place to be. Like Ramana Maharshi was asked that, why don't you act on the world after he had attained enlightenment? And he said that I neither have the interest nor the inclination. It is like if you're living in a 5-star hotel in Bombay, would you like to go to a slum and work for that slum if you're staying in a 5-star hotel? It's very difficult, right? So that state of tyaktena bhunjitha, that state of renunciation and liberation is so beautiful. It is so pleasant, and you're so away from the suffering of this world that you do not want to do work in this world. And yet, the Upanishad is saying that not only should we do work, but we should wish to live for 100 years. Because why are we then working? We are not working for ourselves, but for Loka Sangraha, as the Gita says. We are working to enhance the consciousness upon earth as instruments of the divine. And only then, not otherwise, karma does not cleave to man. Now, what is karma? Karma is the effect of some cause, right? They always, Newton's third law says, to every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So anything that we do has a consequence. And that consequence again is an action that will have another consequence. So karma always keeps us in this loop of death and birth and suffering. So there was a whole philosophy which was built that how karma will not lipyate to men. How will karma not attach to man? And there are these whole philosophical schools that do not engage with life. They go to the monastery. The other way of dealing with it is you don't earn money or spend it. You just take whatever minimum is needed. But that is not practical, right? To abstain from action is impractical. And if we do action, we will be in this life and death. So what is the way out? Can anybody tell me? Sorry? Yeah. So karma is only born when action is based on personal desire. But when action is based on selflessness, desirelessness, and as an instrument of the divine, when we have given up and renounced all personal attachment, and we are just the instruments of the divine, that action is true action. That action is for lokasangraha, and that action does not attach itself to man. So this is the second verse of the first movement. And we will go to the third verse. Asurya nama te loka andhena tamasavritah tamste pretyabhigachanti yeke chatmahano janah. So Asurya is sunless. The worlds are sunless. And andhena, in blind darkness and tamas, they are avrita, they are covered, enveloped. And who goes to these worlds after death? Pretyabhigachanti means going after death. Preti abhigachanti. Yeke chatmahano janaha. Those who are the slayers of their souls. So this is again a very important text. What does it mean, slayers of their souls? Any idea?
Those without self-knowledge.
Sorry?
Those without self-knowledge.
Okay. What else? Because this third verse will connect to the later verse also in more detail. So if you see, importance has been given to living, right? Importance has been given to living for 100 years, to be in life. Why is importance given to living and not to moksha? Living, because it is only in life that evolution can happen. Growth of consciousness can happen only in life, between birth and death. After death, the soul just reposes in another world till it takes another birth and starts its journey. So, Atmahana Janaha means also those who not just do not have self-knowledge, but it also pertains to this practical aspect of those who kill themselves, those who commit suicide, or those who cut short their lives. They also go into greater darkness, because whatever problem one runs away from to commit and dies and commits suicide, one is born in 10 times more difficult situation of the same kind. So there is no running away from life. We cannot run away from a problem. The only way is to face it and overcome it. And if we try to cut short our life, then we go into sunless worlds that are enveloped in blind gloom. This is one meaning, okay? This is one meaning of the verse. And the second meaning is that the souls that go to attain nirvana, okay, they decide not to play the game of life. What is nirvana or moksha? Is you escape from this whole birth and death thing by merging into an aspect of the supreme, and decide, and you go back to the pavilion and decide not to play the game. So those are also the souls who have So what has happened to those souls? That souls have been slayed, right? They are not anymore participating in life. They are not coming here and doing works, verily works in the world. So even those are sunless worlds. That is why if you see, Buddha says that reality is shunyata, nihilism, right? Buddhism says that reality is zero, there's nothing. Because the worlds which Buddha went to is the unmanifest. So we have the Purushottama, the Supreme Being, and there is a world which is unmanifest, which is existing as a potentiality. It is like a banyan seed which is there in your pocket, right? Nobody can see the banyan tree when it is in a seed. So the unmanifest is there, and then this whole Satchidananda and manifestation is there. But what Buddha experienced in his nirvana and moksha was this unmanifest, where everything is darkness. And we will come to future verses which says, Andham tamagam, pravishanti ye vidyam upasate, tatabhuyo eva tebhuo ye vidyayam rataha. So they enter blind darkness who follow after ignorance, but they enter greater darkness who devote themselves to knowledge. And we will come to this. It looks ironic, right? That how can they go to bigger darkness who are devoting themselves to knowledge? So this mantra will link up to this, that two kinds of people go to the worlds which are sunless. One understanding, which you said, which was Shankara's understanding, is self-knowledge. Those who slay their souls are those who do not know of their souls, of course. But in Sri Aurobindo's interpretation, two more kinds of people are here referred to as slayers of their souls. One are those who actively cut short their lives and who are not interested in life, in living. Because the Upanishad is asking us to live for 100 years and to do works. So they who cut short their lives physically go into those sunless worlds. And on the other hand, those who completely attain moksha or nirvana and decide that they do not want to play this game anymore of life. They want to be in those realms of, those spiritual realms alone. And they also have, that is also referred to as darkness in this Upanishad. And this is a very, very important decision here, because why in Hinduism conversion is considered as bad? Why we don't believe in converting people from one religion to another? Because it is considered the biggest violence. Why? Because the Gita says that each of us has a swadharma. We have a way of being. And when we are converted, our very swadharma is changed. So for instance, we are given this choice that which kind of liberation we want. Do we want to just get liberated and not participate in the world anymore? Or do we want to, like the lotus, get liberation, but be in the mud, be in this world, but not of it? Because only when we are liberated, if we get personal liberation and salvation, it is a very selfish thing, right? Each one has got liberation and we have gone. It is personal. So how does the world benefit? But if with that liberation, we decide to stay back here and work for people, that is a higher way of being. And that was the Vedic way of being. That was the purpose of sacrifice, of action. But action that is not based on desire, but action that is done after renouncing all the desire. Only when we do not have personal desire can we be true instrument for the divine, and we can actually do great work in this world. And this work and living is what the Isha Upanishad is asking us to do. And as we go into the other movements, we will see how. So the second movement, what it does is it expands the first verse. So 1, 2, 3, what we did today is the first movement. In the second movement, the first verse is again deepened and understood. In the third movement, the second verse is understood more deeply. And in the fourth movement, the third verse is understood in greater depth. So we will pause here today, and I would like you to have your thoughts or any questions that you may have. Does it make sense what we spoke today?
Yes.
Anything you want to share or any questions?
If anybody has any questions, they can please ask.
So if we have to summarize, what the first movement is saying is that this whole world is created for nothing else but for inhabitation of Isha, of the Lord. And we are nothing but this Lord ourselves. But we are today missing this understanding. We are thinking of ourselves as this limited body with this ego and this little mind. And we think the rest of the world is not us. And so we are trying to, acquire things and are getting attached to these things. But in our essentiality, in our truth, we are Isha. And if we collect things through attachment, we will never be happy, because we first have the anxiety of having it and then the anxiety of losing it. So true enjoyment comes only through renunciation. But then, having renounced, then why do we live? Because there's nothing to look forward to. And that is when the text is saying that only when you have renounced all attachment and desire, you become a true instrument in the hands of the divine, like Arjuna, when you don't have any personal dharmas to follow. That is why Gita, Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityajya. Give up all dharmas and just be an instrument. Mamekam sharanam. Only come and take my refuge. Because only then we can be the true instruments of the divine. And even after we work here for 100 years, karma will not attach to us because karma only attaches when action is done or based on desire. But after renouncement, as instruments, if we do, no karma can be. Karma cannot be given up by not acting. It is not practical. It can only be given up by not acting with desire and with personal ambition. And since life is important because it is the field for progress and evolution, one has to aspire to live for 100 years and have a long life, because it is only in life that we can grow and contribute to the world. And if we do not, and if we decide not to play the game by becoming liberated, and not deciding to come back into this earth, or if we physically give up living in this life, in both the cases, we will go into the sunless worlds, because the only way to be here is in life and to embrace life, but not the way the life will lead now with a lot of attachment and desire, but with freedom. and liberation. So mukti is needed, mukti, liberation. But after mukti, we should stay back here for bhukti, bhunjitha. It clearly says that tena tyaktena bhunjitha. So again here, there is a slight difference in interpretation between Shankara and Sri Aurobindo. So Shankaracharya says that enjoy the renunciation. That is how he interprets it. Enjoy the renunciation. But Sri Aurobindo interprets it that by renouncing, you enjoy. He says after mukti, mukti is not the last step, Sri Aurobindo says. Bhukti is the last step, enjoyment. Because this divine has made this world. There are thousands of flowers, there is thousands of birds and animals, food. This whole world has been made for our enjoyment. Sat Chit Ananda. The final thing is Ananda, is joy. And he says, but bhukti cannot be done without mukti. So liberation has to be there. Renouncement has to be there. But not to escape life, but to live life more completely, to live life better. Because only when we have renounced, we can truly enjoy. So the purpose of life is not renunciation or liberation. The purpose of life is enjoyment. And enjoyment in serving others. That is the true enjoyment. We be here to serve everybody, to be here for Loka Sangraha. And in that serving, we find enjoyment, bhunjitha. And we can only do that serving when we are renounced. If we want this or that for our personal needs, we can never serve truly and we can never be happy. Is it clear? I think it is very nice way to be. If somebody asks me, would you like to go to heaven or come back to earth again and again? I would always choose to come back to earth again and again. No? It's so interesting. There's so many things to do. It is. Only thing is, it should be done with a liberated spirit. You should not fear or have want this or that, but live like with sheer abandon, with open heart and mind, and as a servant of the divine. And spread your positivity and goodness. What better way? Why seek personal salvation and then it's like not playing cricket because you're afraid of defeat, not playing one day and going and sitting in the pavilion because you fear that you may be defeated or something like that. No, the better way is to play without any sense of defeat, without any botheration for that. So living life completely, accepting life, enjoying life as the divine would want us to enjoy. That is why the world is called Leela. That is why avatars take the trouble of coming here again and again. Krishna, others, Ram, they take the trouble of coming here again and again. If they wanted us to just leave this world and go, why would they build it and create it in the first place? Right? So that is the takeaway of the session today. And I hope you found some insights in it. I would like you to contemplate and reflect on these and feel free to ask any question. Do not think that anything will be, you can ask any difficult question or anything you want fearlessly. Right?
Saram,
So we
anybody
ended.
has any questions? Yes, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. It was really a wonderful session, ma'am.
Thank you. If you do not have questions, we can end it.
Sure, ma'am. We'll just confirm if anybody has any questions. Okay, ma'am. I don't think anybody has. Ma'am, it was really wonderful session. We really look forward for your class.
Thank you.
And we'll end with Sahana Vatu.
Yeah.
Sara, ma'am. Thank you.
Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Sarah ma'am, thank you very much.
Thank you.